I continued to work a little bit after I retired by starting a marketing company. And the interesting thing that kind of led me to what we're going to talk about today is every client I had, I worked very closely with them to put together a marketing and branding plan. And at the end of the day, what I heard from almost every client is this is a wonderful plan, but I'm not too sure we have the people on our team that can deliver that kind of branding and then to execute that kind of plan. So I have started spending most of my time working with organizations to help them go beyond the resume to hire people with the right soft skills that can really deliver that brand. So let me see if there you go. Um, so let me just say this. Um, One thing that I am spending most of my time on is not marketing so much, but helping organizations like all of y'all work for in finding the right people to deliver the brand on their team. And so that being said, I have some goals for today. And here they are. The first thing is we're going to talk a little bit about some different personality types. And I'm going to talk about four specifically. I'm going to talk about some of the strengths and interests of each one of those personality types. We're going to talk a lot about the importance of understanding the organizational culture when we're hiring people to join our team. One thing that a lot of people talk about is emotional intelligence. I call them soft skills, but we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and some of the soft skills that are very important in that. And then finally, we're going to talk about some tools that'll help us identify those candidates and hopefully they will help them be successful. So let me talk about the four personality types. And as I go through these, I want you to think about people that might be on your team, or it could be yourself that that is a really good fit for one of these personality types. The first one I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about Greta. Greta's a salesperson. Every time you see her, she's selling, she's promoting, she's teaching, she works with people to help get results. Um, when she believes in a product or an idea, she can sell it. I love this last sentence. If you want to win friends and influence people, Greta is the person for the job. So we might all know somebody like that. Here's Ray. Now, Ray is very different. Ray's a doer. Um, he works, he talks, he's very task oriented, he makes quick decisions, he gets organized with the intent of getting results, pretty direct in his communication. He likes seeing a finished product at the end of the day. He's very competitive. And so if you want something done and you want it done quickly, Ray's the person that you need on your team. Well, here's Yvonne. Um, Yvonne is her real value to the organization is that she loves numbers. Usually, Yvonne's wind up in our accounting department, but not always. She's very, very detailed. Tax day is a very important day for her. She's also a very, very good person to consult when it comes to financial matters or budgets because she's very cautious, very thorough in her analysis. So that's the third personality type, Yvonne. And here's Blake. Um, Blake is very creative. He's a big idea guy. He's a long-term planner. Um, Blake is very instrumental when it comes to strategic planning. Um, he doesn't want to jump right into things. He wants to think about things, and he wants to come up with the best ideas for solving a problem. I've often said that if we've got a problem that we're having trouble coming up with a good solution, find Blake, and he can probably do that for us. So those are the four types. and I'm going to attach a color and a name to each one of these four personality types. So be careful when you're looking at these colors because you're going to see them again a couple of times along the way. So let's talk about the very first person we talked to, Greta. Um, I call her a talker. She does a whole lot more than talking, but she is a great communicator. She has a green personality when it comes to those colors that I'm going to talk about. Um, Ray is a red doer. Um, he's the guy that just likes to roll up his sleeves and get things done. We kind of call the doers the get her done personality type. Um, there's the counter. There's Yvonne, the yellow color. Yvonne is the detail-oriented accounting type. And this Blake. Blake is a thinker. It's a blue color. You'll notice that the green is Greta, the R is Ray, the red box. Yvonne is yellow, and B is the blue thinker. So those are the four personality types. Now, sometimes people can be part of their day, they could be in one box or another, but those are four pretty distinct personality types. And there's a lot of information on this page. Thank you for being able to pass this along to everybody, Kathy, because there's a lot of detail here. And I'm going to go over just a little bit of it. It's pretty interesting when you look at the four personality types and some of the words that might describe what people with those personality types are really all about. I'm going to start with the green talker up here. They do tend to find their way into sales and marketing in their personal lives. They may do some consulting. They may do some volunteer work. They tend to be people oriented. They're pretty sociable. They like working in teams. They're on the side of these four personality types that's much more subjective and people oriented than the red doer next to Greta there. Those people are, they're the get it done people. They like to roll up their sleeves and get things done. They like to see a finished product at the end of the day. They tend to be very decisive, very energetic. The yellow box below that, the counter, the words that might describe them well, they're very detail oriented. They love data. They do tend to be a little bit cautious. Procedures are something they really enjoy. It kind of helps them do their job. They're fairly organized. And then the Blake, the blue thinker down here, great planner. We need ideas. That's the personality type that really does that. They tend to have an emotional connection with people. The only other thing I want to mention about these four personality types is you'll notice the green and the red tend to be on more of the direct communication side of the map here. A little bit more indirect, maybe a little bit more introverted, the blue and the yellow. So those are some words that might describe some of the attributes of those different personality types. So the big question is, do you see yourself here? If you have team members, can you look at those attributes and you can say, yeah, I think Bob, he's a real doer. He doesn't like to think about things too much. He likes to roll up his sleeves and get things done. So even without an assessment, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, those personality strengths and interests, if we have kind of a working knowledge of what type those belong to, we can almost predict what some of our team members are. So those are the four types. So the big question for y'all is, okay, if we really need all of those types or most of those types on our team, are we missing anything? Do we have too much of one type of personality, or do we have a little bit of a void? So what's missing on the team and what is needed is a good takeaway from this conversation we're having today. So I'm going to talk about teams a little bit. If you don't know Simon Sinek, you need to Google him. He is a wonderful, wonderful author. Here's what he says about teams. He says we all can't be good at everything. That is partly why we have teams in the first place. So each role can be filled with the person that's best suited for that role, and together every job and every strength is covered. So here are the four types. I could probably argue that most teams need somebody with each one of those types. Imagine a team that had nothing but thinkers on the team. I tell you, we'd have some wonderful, great ideas. It would be very creative. We'd be very innovative. But if we didn't have that person in that red box to take those great ideas and develop a plan around executing that plan, then we're probably going to fall a little bit short. So those are pretty important. I'll tell you what, I have missed the slide, so I just want to talk about this for a second. Imagine this situation. We're in our conference room. Everybody's got a marker. We got a whiteboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a brainstorming session around some idea. It could be a new product. It could be a new approach. It could be how we go about getting new customers. You put a marker in that blue thinker's hand, and they are in seventh heaven. That's their sweet spot. Now, the red doer, they're important too. But remember now, this is a brainstorming session. We got a whiteboard, and the idea is to come up with ideas and not judge them right now. Let me tell you what the red doer does, because I've got a little bit of red doer in me. The first idea that I hear that I really like, I'm going to, may not be visible to everybody, but I'm immediately going to turn my attention developing a little bit of a plan to how to make that idea happen. Remember now, we're only dreaming right now. We're not doing yet. I've had some yellow counters on my teams in the past, and all those great ideas that we're throwing up on a whiteboard, that yellow counter is probably going to come up with some ideas why those ideas won't work. So we might have a little conflict here. As a matter of fact, there's probably some things that we can do to alleviate those conflicts early on. Here's something I've done. If I'm going to have a brainstorming session and the goal is to come up with ideas, not to judge those ideas yet, but just to come up with a laundry list, I tell everybody at the beginning of the meeting, this was a blue meeting, suggesting that blue thinker, the creative person, the person that's going to come up with all the ideas. So don't come up with an action plan yet. Don't give me all the reasons why those ideas won't work. That'll come later. So that blue meeting is one that kind of sends a notice to the red doer that, okay, your time will come. The yellow counter, there'll be plenty of time to look at those different ideas and figure out whether they'll work or not. But it's also a message to that blue thinker. All those great ideas we're coming up with, we're going to need those other personality types along the way to take those great ideas and actually make something happen. I do like to laugh about this one because every one of the jobs that I've ever had, have been in marketing. I've got a couple of sales jobs, but if you want to talk about conflict, think about the chief marketing officer of the organization and whether or not they have any conflict with the chief financial officer. This diagonal line here, I've experienced that many, many times. I wish I had a nickel for every time somebody in the finance department said, "What are you spending all that money on advertising for? I'm not seeing the results." So there's some conflicts, and we have to kind of work through those. So that is a little bit about the four personality types and what the kind of what their strengths are, what they're interested in, maybe some words to describe them. But let's talk about inviting somebody as a candidate to come for us to talk about and talk to. We want to make sure they're a good fit for the organization, but what do we know about the corporate culture of the organization? Now, this one, I'm going to go over some of the highlights of this, but when you get your copy of this presentation, this is a good one to stop and think about. Share with your team. What kind of corporate culture are we doing business in? And here are four different corporate cultures, and they each have a different list of requirements from the leaders and different responsibilities of the leaders to provide, depending on the color. So let's just pick one here. I'm going to pick the blue thinker. And let me tell you how I typically use this when I'm consulting with an organization. I'll give this advance to all of the team members and say, don't share your ideas with other people. Rank the corporate culture, the one that best fits your organization, give it a 1, and then a 2, and a 3, and a 4. And the 4s generally are very different than what the corporate culture is. But the number 1s, most of the time, I get an agreement between team members. It's interesting when I don't, and we have that discussion. So that's what that rank at the bottom is. So let's talk about a culture that really supports innovation. The idea here is building a better future. Could be building our business. It could be introducing new products, merging and acquiring other organizations. Leaders in an organization like that really need to understand that new ideas and creativity is something that they need to exude. Strategy, big time. More of an entrepreneurial focus. But they also provide to the team personal support for creative ideas. So there are people on the team that have great ideas, and a good leader listens to them, writes them down, considers them. Let's go diagonally across to the directing culture. Remember now, the red that's the red doer. Those are the people that make up an organization's getting the job done. What they tend to do is be a little bit of a sink or swim culture. What's required of leaders is that hands-on expertise. The leader is the one we go to when we need to get a decision made, because if not, you're holding up getting the job done. The staff is pretty much self-reliant, on time, on budget. That's really kind of indicative of that culture. Leaders provide deadlines because people want to know, what do we need to do and when do we need to do it? and a kind of a right now time orientation. So a lot of this culture is about getting things done right now. And there's two other cultures on here. So um, I would just ask you that when you get the copy of the presentation, look at this and see if there's uh, an agreement within your organization on what the corporate culture really is all about. Okay. Um, I want to talk a little bit about uh, emotional intelligence. There are a lot of things that um, we talk about emotional intelligence an awful lot. I think before we talked about emotional intelligence, we were talking about soft skills. Um, when we talk about evaluating a candidate beyond their resume, what's a resume full of? Resumes are full of this is the education I have, this is where I've worked, here is a list of the accomplishments that I've had. But think about uh, some of the soft skills, and I just picked 6 of them here. There's many, many more. I like this one because they all start with C. Um, what is your communication style? Uh, are you a collaborator or are you not? Is critical thinking a good description of how you work? Creativity is always important because that's where innovation comes from. And of course, people need to be of sound character, and particularly organizations that are going through a lot of change. We need people who uh, understand change and are open to it. So let's talk about a couple of them. I'm going to talk about communication first. And you're going to see something that makes that last little bit of the presentation, the corporate culture, make a lot of sense. Um, Communication, and I'm going to define that as sensitivity in communicating with other people. Is the culture of the organization straightforward, direct? You know, are we all brutally honest with each other, regardless of whether it's going to hurt our other people's feelings or not? Or is the culture of the organization to be tactful and diplomatic? I'm going to tell you what I think, but I'm going to be careful that I don't uh, kind of cross that line into brutally honest. So, what's the communication style of the candidate? Um, if the culture of the organization is to be very straightforward and direct, but the communication style of the candidate is kind of oh, I'm going to go beyond tactful and diplomatic. There are people that kind of beat around the bush a little bit. I want to know what you think, and uh, and so that's how the corporate culture of the organization around communication can be a factor. What about collaboration? Is the organizational culture is that we do things as a team, we trust each other as a team, we have each other's back, or is it focused on personal performance? So, what's the style of the candidate? If that candidate is a great team player, and the organizational culture is one of team orientation, then we probably have a pretty good fit. Um, uh, but what if the team is, what if the culture of the organization is very team oriented, um, but the candidate really seems to be driven by personal performance? That might not be a good fit. I like to talk about people that appear to be great team players as long as they get to be the MVP of the team. So corporate culture and then the um, personality of the candidate is a really good place to start. So let's talk about recruitment tools. Um, you know, uh, when we talk about recruitment tools, sometimes people start talking about assessments, and there's a lot of them that we can cover. I've done them all. Um, I have a pretty good working knowledge of all of them. I'm talking about assessments like um, the Myers-Briggs, um, Strength Finders. There's a number of other ones. So the intent here is not to name them all, but if you're going to choose one, um, I suggest, and what I tell my clients is, don't just go for the cheapest, go for the one that has the best value. Um, does it come with some professional counseling, or is it pretty much self-interpreted? So that's a kind of some big considerations. Um, the best ones certainly can benefit the hiring process. But if the entire team, management, the board, and the organization as a whole can benefit from it, that pretty much adds some extra value to very specific tools. I do want to talk about this one a little bit because I will hear from clients all the time. We're not real keen on paying a lot of money for an assessment, but maybe there's a next best thing. Um, think about the last interview that you've done with a candidate, or perhaps think about an interview that you were on yourself. Um, do we talk about and do we ask questions about things beyond the resume? I think it's time well spent to develop some really great interview questions that really go to personality and um, some of those key things around emotional intelligence. Um, some of the best interviews that I've heard done um, aren't asking yes or no questions, but looking at real world situations that our team as a whole are going through, posing those as, here's a situation. If you were faced with a situation like that, tell me what you would do. You're going to get some great insight into the personality and how a candidate thinks by thinking through real world situations. I also, this is something that is worth spending some time on. And, in an interview, the more you know and observe, the better you can predict what personality that person is going to bring onto a job. What is their communication style? Are they direct or are they tactful and diplomatic? And how does it fit with the corporate culture of our organization? Is the candidate that we're talking to very detail oriented, or are they big picture? You might be able to tell just from that observation whether they're that red doer or the blue thinker. So, how they present things, whether it's very detailed or more big picture. My very first job, I went to sales at Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble would never make a decision on a candidate without inviting the candidate and their spouse or their significant other to some kind of a social situation, whether it's a dinner or whether it's a get together of other salespeople. You can learn a lot about an individual and their personality by how they interact with other people in a social situation. That really goes beyond just the interview. But you can tell whether they're introverted or they're extroverted. So an assessment is great. I'm going to kind of finish this up by telling you what I use, but um, you can learn a lot by just understanding these different personality types and being observant. So next best thing. Here are the big takeaways I think from today, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A a little for some of your questions. We did talk about different personality types, and that really does go beyond the resume. And if we consider those personality types in making decisions on a particular candidate, um, uh, that's a good thing. We did talk a little bit about emotional intelligence and how important those soft skills are. Corporate culture does play a big part in it. An individual might be perfect for one company and be a bad fit for another one. So understanding the corporate culture is very, very important. And assessment and recruitment tools can be used, and whether it's a formal assessment or just expanding how we approach an interview and observing people's personality, it can help a great deal. And then even beyond recruitment, assessments can help the entire organization. I like to tell people that team building, understanding what other people need from each other is very, very important. Now, there's something that I just thought of that there is a slide in what you're going to get, but for whatever reason it fell out of this one. Here's what I get asked a lot. We've interviewed a candidate, and our team really, really likes them. So we'll just call him Bob. The team got together after interviewing Bob, and they really, really like Bob and think Bob is the person that we want to invite to join our team. But we did an assessment, and Bob doesn't appear, using that assessment, to be a very good fit. So what do we do? Well, here's what I tell people. And first of all, there's no really, really great answer for that. What I tell people is an assessment is just a tool, but at some point in time, if you make a decision based on your gut, you make a decision based on what you observe and how they conduct themselves in an interview or maybe in social situations. It's okay to say, well, the assessment might not be the best decision maker on this one. I think we'll just go with Bob and what the team thinks. So I would be interesting to hear in a Q&A whether anybody has had that kind of a situation and what they did about it. Beyond what I've said, I don't really have a better answer for that. So, okay, question. Now, Kathy, how are we going to do this?
Excuse me, I was on mute. I feel like anyone that is has a question to please let us know. We don't need to go into the chat unless you want to.
So Mike, I had a question in regards to the cultural fit, right? So we're supposed to be finding a team that's balanced, right? You don't want to be all reds or all blue. We want some people in an organization in all of those buckets.
Right.
But if we determine that our culture, you ask everybody and everybody gives red number one, so we're obviously a red company. How it feels like only people that were red would really want to come to our company. how do you weigh that balance, and how do you justify that fit if their style doesn't meet your culture? And how do you get that balance?
Well, Brian, I'll answer it two ways. First of all, a lot of it depends on the company. If it's a company that has one product, um, innovation just isn't uh, the way they do business. Um, you're probably fine having more red doers. Um, but if the company is depends on introducing new products all the time, and if you don't have a blue thinker on the team, well, then we probably have to turn around and look at the leader of the organization and say, that that role um, is largely served by an executive team or a designated leader, knowing full well that once you come up with some ideas, the red doers on the team are going to take it and run with it. So, it's kind of a gray area, but yeah, I'm with you. But
So will a candidate say the candidate's a yellow, and they can, I mean, you hope that the candidate feels your culture, right? So you're a red, they feel that you're a red company and they're yellow. Are they likely to decline your offer? Or are they gonna feel uncomfortable in your organization just from the jump of the interview? Or does that not come out so much from the employer side on an interview?
yeah, um, you know, as long as I've been doing this, I have I have yet to see an organization that that you could that's a that if you look at the four personality type, obviously an accounting firm, you're gonna, that's a yellow organization, and they probably have one or two account managers that go sell their services to other companies, and they're probably a green talker, but a lot of that is defined by the company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, but I got to tell you, and I just got the list of who's on this call, so I don't know if this makes sense, but we have to be careful sometimes that we don't say, well, we're recruiting for a salesperson, and you have to be a green talker to be a salesperson. Well, that's not true. Um, you can be any one of the four personality types and really be a pretty good salesperson. Um, a lot depends on the corporate culture of um, the buyers that salesperson's calling on. I mean, if you're gonna call on you know an engineering company, I almost guarantee that engineering company is going to be heavily skewed toward red doers. So you're probably going to have to become a red doer on a sales call. Your sales techniques are going to have to be more red doer, to get the attention of your buyer. So
Thanks. I think that's valuable to all of us to think about, because most of this group is sales and marketing guys. So
I and if I'll share this, Kathy, I'll share this with you. Um, I've got a one pager that
Okay.
might be worth sharing, and that is um, taking uh, sales as a role and showing how each one of those personality types can be a wonderful salesperson. They just their sales approach is probably going to be a little bit different. So I'll share that if you want to share it with everybody. Okay, another question? Did I answer everybody's question?
Seems like you might have, Michael.
Oh, no. I want to be challenged. Um, Let me think. I do have I would love a somebody's feeling about organizational culture. Is that something you talk about? Is that something that you've ever, Brian, you covered it well, but I'm wondering if corporate culture is one of those things that other people think about, uh, do something with, and how important it is in the recruitment process.
I mean, I would say for our organization, we talk about culture all the time and we post it on the walls, but it it's a very internal thing and it's not. Uh, I mean, maybe some of our tight vendors we share it with, but we don't we don't always we try, but I mean the HR department is probably better, but we don't always share. Uh, we don't share what type of organization we are, other than that we want to be a loving company and all and take care of our people. But as far as are we doers or are we thinker? Like how does our what's the gut feel of our organization? I don't know that we always share that unless
Yeah.
it just exudes from the interviewer.
Hmm. Okay. That's fair. Okay. Well, Kathy, I got one more slide, and this is um, I told everybody I was a consultant and a coach, and I worked really, really hard not to let um, what I do and what I use to enter into it. But um, this is my this is my self-serving slide. Um, Let me tell you what I use. Um, and I have to tell you, it's been, oh my gosh, uh, 30 years ago, I discovered the Berkman method. They're all the every every assessment is good. It really just matters. All that really matters is what you do with it. Um, but every assessment that I looked at, I was trying to decide whether to leave corporate America and go into nonprofit work, and I did that in 1996. So it's been a few years. Um, I looked at every different personality assessment because I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing for my career. And I bumped into somebody that said, "Well, you ought to look at the Berkman." The Berkman is a well-kept secret. It is a Houston-based company that's got consultants all over the world. Um, every assessment I looked at did a good job of telling me what my strengths were. But the Berkman went one step further, and it gave me um, the needs I have in order to be the best I can be. So, as an example, um, I may I may be a very straightforward, direct, brutal communicator, but I have different needs than my strengths. I need people to be a little bit more tactful and diplomatic than I am myself. The Berkman was the only tool that told me what I needed from other people, from my organization. Um, it works in your personal life too. Um, and so I gravitated to that and was certified in it. It's not just about talent selection. It's great for team building. It's great for leadership development, uh, career exploration. I spent a lot of time helping people who are changing jobs or maybe changing careers, and the Berkman can really help on that. So you're going to see on this last slide when you get the presentation, you're going to see my email address. Um, And if you just drop me a note, I'll send you a sample report, see if it's right for you. And if you decide to get started, I'm happy to do that. So they're all good. They're only as good as what you do with them. This is the one that I've felt best met my needs, and I'm happy to share. So
I just want to jump in there real quick and say that I owe Mike make a huge thank you for doing this, and also an apology for being late. But Mike is a personal friend of mine, and has actually, I mean, has done my Berkman assessment, and I would say that there are some huge things that me and him have talked about in the past that are personal things that I know about myself that none of the other assessments painted, and the Berkman really laid out some really interesting things about me that I was kind of shocked that they could uncover, like underneath the surface, that it picked up on. And I would challenge y'all to give it a try, even if it's just to do your own personal assessment. It actually came with a coaching page that actually I can hand my boss and say, hey, this is how I want to be managed, which is kind of crazy, but actually effective. But again, just thanks Mike for doing this for us, and appreciate the time.
thanks for
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
And yes,
Thank you,
I'm
Michael.
sorry.
I
Go ahead,
just said
Kathy.
thank you. I was just saying thank you, Michael. I was adding my thanks. This is very interesting.
Okay. And Kathy, I would, I sent you the most recent presentation, which yeah, feel free to pass on. And if you are doing um, a an evaluation, um, I'd love to see a top line of that when you're done with it. Okay. I
Sounds
think
good.
we're done.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And you'll receive that survey here in just a minute. We'd appreciate it if you'd fill it out.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.